you should start and test out account-based marketing with the tools that you have. And it's harder. It's much more difficult. It's much more manual. The tools are very cool and they have shortcuts for everything and they can help you scale in a more efficient way. But you should start with smaller scale manual. You can do some things in LinkedIn without having to have an additional platform. You can do quite a lot with just building your extra microsite in WordPress. You can be creating sections of your blog that are more specific to certain verticals or certain personas and really test how this is going to work for your brand before you get into it full-fledged. ABM approach that really is investing in an account-based marketing tool or platform.
You're listening to Content Logistics,
a podcast for B2B marketers where we explore the foundational
and sometimes frustrating elements of content.
We're talking to the experts, learning all their tips and tricks, and sharing them with you.
We don't gatekeep here. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Content Logistics. I am your co-host, Dallion, and Baylee and I have a really special guest today on our show. She's a close personal friend of mine. Her name is Taylor Young. She is the Director of Strategic Initiatives at Terminus. I call her the ABM Queen, and I cannot wait for you to hear the amazing insights that she's sharing with us today in the episode. Taylor has a track record of being a revenue-boosting ABM powerhouse. She has helped hundreds of individuals and teams launch ABM campaigns that really grow the revenue of their companies. I'm so excited for you all to listen in to this conversation, and I'm so grateful that she took the time to share this with us.
So right on point with Taylor's expertise. Today we're going to be talking about ABM, specifically the type of content that makes great ABM campaigns. We're also going to talk about how to get started with ABM, some really easy steps for teams that have never done this before or who maybe haven't seen great success when they've done it in the past. Then a really fun thing, we'll dive into the origin of ABM, really where it comes from, and how there's different ways that you can use it to your best advantage. So let's get into it. Hey, Taylor, welcome to the show.
Hi, great to be here.
Hey, Taylor, so good to see you. So good to have you on the show. So you work with a lot of companies on their ABM strategies. I want to know, what's the biggest misconception that you encounter when it comes to account-based marketing, especially for people who are just starting out?
Oh my gosh, there's so many ways to answer that question. I think the biggest misconception that we run into is people who think that they can do it fully with just the marketing team and not the sales team being involved at all. It is kind of a misnomer to be called account-based marketing, and as if a marketing team could do it completely solo, because you truly can't. You need to be organized with your sales team. But there are several things in addition to that I think can stall out an ABM program that are really, and the topic of the show here, based around the resources and the research that they've done prior to, organizing into a full-fledged ABM approach that really is investing in an account-based marketing tool or platform. And so when I'm talking to clients, I'm talking about, and usually people looking to purchase or mature into a platform, I'm talking about the 3 C's. So that is customer, creative, and content, which is really fitting for today's conversation. When I'm talking about customer, I'm saying, do you know your customer well enough to be running an account-based program? Do you know their pain? Do you know why they purchase from you? Account-based marketing is a really narrowed approach on your best fit customers. So it's impossible to run that if you don't know who your best fit customers are. And you should have done quite a bit of research and understanding like the profile of a best fit customer for your business, including people who purchase ongoing or that are happy customers, as well as winning in new business deals. That second one is creative. And not that you have to have everything prepared right out of the gate, but you should certainly have a process for getting creative organized and made in a way that you can get it across these channels. Because the best account-based approach is having a really strong strategy and having really great content and publishing it across multiple channels and really surrounding those accounts with that information. But you have to have a process of getting that message out across each of those channels. And the big one being, and what I see people struggle with probably the most, is content. You have to have a really great message and a really great content strategy to support an advanced account-based motion. If you don't have content, if you're serving advertisements that basically only land on product pages, you're really, really going to struggle there. And that's not as quick of a win as let's do some research to find out who our best customer is, or let's hire an agency that can pump out ad campaigns or ad creatives. Content is a holistic strategy, and it's something you cannot overcome in a really lazy way and do well with account-based marketing.
I would venture to say that I love your 3Cs, by the way, but I would venture to say that even on that first C for the customer, you can't do content if you don't have the first C. You can't do good marketing if you don't know who you are talking to. And I think that it's just that in and of itself, we could probably do this whole episode on, because I find that a lot of people don't have that nailed down. When people come to you to want to start an ABM campaign, do you find that they come to you with the customer, or do you wind up having to guide them to who they should be speaking to?
It's a really interesting dichotomy because I work with account-based marketing and because I'm doing strategy specific for that program. Usually they have an idea of who their best fit customer is. Where we struggle with account-based is they don't narrow it enough, because there are a lot of people who will come in and say, my customer's everybody. Like, no, your best customer is not everyone. Your best customer is a smaller cohort and group of those people. So sometimes that can be seen in, you could take a one-to-many or a one-to-few or a one-to-one approach to ABM. ABM originated sort of in that one-to-one bespoke, and then tools like ours and other platforms have been able to allow people to scale it into more one-to-few and one-to-many. But that does not mean, kind of a lazy way of doing it would be saying, oh, I'm going to make a couple of industry pages and they're going to be exactly the same copy, and we're just going to change the name of the industry and we're going to put all the exact same pain points on there. And that's account-based marketing, because it certainly is not going to be effective.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense with the different styles of ABM too, and the size that you're trying to target. I think especially too for these companies that work in maybe tech and they have a highly technical audience, that one to few or one to one it can be really powerful. And coming back to content, which is really like the purpose of this podcast and what we want to talk about too, your content is going to be so important to these campaigns, because especially those technically minded people, they don't want to be sold to. They want to more connect, to learn, and that content makes a really big difference with that.
Yeah, certainly. One of the biggest pieces of, talking to people about an account-based approach is getting the right message to the right person at the right time. And I think all content can really hone in on that. But when you're taking an account-based strategy, you are listening for signals that person's ready to buy, or what stage they may be in for the research that they're doing about your company. So if you've got no signal, then you may be just trying to build that relationship with thought leadership content, long form, educational, something that's just trying to position you as someone who understands them as a customer and the problems that they have and how you can possibly solve them. But we don't want to skip all the way to how you solve that problem for them. That's a big thing that a lot of the clients have struggled with. When they come in, they have content ready for really late stage. Like, I'm going to educate you about how I, as a business, can solve your problem. Here's product pages. And they don't have as much in that awareness stage where you're just trying to get them to know about their pain and see you as a thought leader in the space, that you truly can connect and understand them without trying to do that whole pitch slap of the sales messaging. And that's such an important component to getting started in ABM.
That's really interesting that the companies don't have the kind of lower level content created. But it makes sense that they want to skip to like, here's my thing, here's what I do. You briefly touched on the history of ABM and like where it originates from. Can you share a little bit about that with us and how it's like been adapted to smaller companies so that, anyone can do it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a part of where ABM really as a term originated, I think a lot of companies have been doing it for quite a while, but for B2B, we've been really behind the ball for B2C for quite a long time. And so, within the 90s, kind of early 2000s, some really big brands like Accenture, who works with IBM, were working on these massive deals, multi-million dollar, multi-year deals, and they had the margin in those opportunities to create one-to-one programs that were just nurturing one deal. It could even be like a 5-person team creating co-branded content specific to winning this one organization. And there's a really cool strategy behind that where if you win the leader in one vertical, that like if you win Nike, then you have the social proof to say you can win every other shoe company out there because they're like, oh, you work with Nike? There's your social proof. And so you can scale that. But obviously, that's very expensive. If you have a full staff of people creating co-branded ebooks and white papers and presentations and marketing, advertising and things for one deal, one opportunity that could, by the way, fall through and take multiple years, it's risky and it's very, very expensive. So it does not scale whatsoever. But later, when everyone started to get into the game for scale of this, you got some of the platforms that would come out. And so a lot of the platforms allowed people to understand and target individual companies. Like our platform allows you to get advertising in front of specific companies instead of the demographic of just an individual. And so that allows you to do that one-to-few or one-to-many approach in a more cost-effective way. Hopefully still really customizing some of that content to get that right message in front of the right person at the right time.
Just a funny add in here. I love the idea of getting that one big company as social proof. I call that the Frank Sinatra principle because if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. If you can get Nike, then you can get any client.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen actually more and more customers trying to scale in that way, which is a really cool way to do your one-to-one. I work with companies that are like restaurant software for inventory management, and they're like, we got McDonald's. We are solid, golden arches now that we have McDonald's. And I think it's such an interesting strategy to build a brand on, for sure.
How does, when we're talking about content strategy for companies that aren't just focused on like the Nikes of the world, how does the strategy differ when you're talking one-to-many, which is what most B2B small tech companies are going to be doing?
Yeah, that's a really great question because it is when you're entering in, especially if you want to get into account-based marketing and you don't have the resources or the team that can create all of these one-to-one assets. We like to think more in one-to-few. You still need to do the research and understand these accounts. You need to understand the personas who are involved in buying these products or services from you. And you need to understand maybe what are the key differentiators that are going to help you get the right message to maybe not a one-to-one account, but that smaller group of accounts. So that could be industry. Different industries have different struggles, even if you're selling them the same service to solve that problem. It could be through company size. If you sell to mid-market and enterprise companies, they could still be facing different challenges and have different concerns about how your business works for them. So addressing those in your content strategy. So many different ways you can slice and dice it. But the way that we tell people to prioritize is, again, narrowing in on that best fit account, understanding, why did you decide to take an account-based approach to this? So what problem are you trying to solve? Really align it to the goal. So if you're struggling with awareness and you're just trying to get more site traffic from the types of accounts that you'll win deals with better, then there's a different strategic approach to that content and the channel activation strategy than if you've got plenty of brand awareness and everybody knows your name, but they're not converting into pipeline. There's a different type of content that you want to serve to that customer and to that audience.
For sure. You mentioned to me and Baylee when we talked offline that you sometimes lead a content mapping workshop as part of your job. Can you walk us through maybe a simplified version? If you would imagine, like our listeners, they have their ideal customer in mind. Like, what are 2 to 3 types of content that they should absolutely have ready to go?
Yeah, absolutely. So that content mapping workshop is usually a quick follow after we do an overall go-to-market workshop. So when we do a go-to-market workshop, we're understanding, like I said, the goals, the benchmarks that we have for those goals, what their audiences are, and what those audiences care about. And then we pull in, we let that digest and understand and make tweaks to that type of, because that's a really big multi-hour workshop. And usually it's bringing in marketing and sales, and sometimes even for the first time, they're having these conversations together. So we let that digest a little bit, and then we look at the content that exists and we try to categorize it. So is this relevant to these personas and audiences that we've created? If so, how does that content fit in? So typically you'll see a big old mural board that we love to use, and it's stage-based. So is this awareness type content? It talks about the features of an awareness piece. Long form, thought leadership, educational, focused on, pain points or commiserating on, what their concerns are and letting people feel that you know who they are and you're speaking to them and giving them the opportunity to be like, oh yeah, these people really get me and get what I'm going through. And if they have that content ready, then we'll map that to specific stages. If not, then we'll create kind of a gap analysis of where that could fit in or brainstorm some of the types of content. It's actually a really fun exercises almost in specifically this awareness stage. I like to challenge them to come up with, and you guys might hate it, like BuzzFeed article type text. Like, what would you click on?
I
This
love
is
it.
someone who has never interacted with your business, because we have the signal to show that. So we can show if they've never been on your website. We can show that they are not showing any type of third-party research onto your system about your platform or product or services. So you're really trying to hook them. So we're like, what would a BuzzFeed article that got your attention sound like? And we kind of brainstorm on some of those things and get them a little bit excited about that. And then you'll move into the next stage, which is just like, okay, we do intent topics. So intent is third-party research off of your website. And so at that stage, we have a hint about what they care about. And so it could be one part of your product offering versus another. It could be a different pain point that we know that they have now that we're seeing that kind of signal. And so we can riff off of those intent topics and create content around that pain or that product that they're researching. And then that next stage before we're building pipeline is really understanding what content they've already interacted with on your site, because we can see all of the page views that they've already done. And if they're spiking or researching on certain things, and then serve them the next level of content to get them to convert.
I find it interesting that you do that with sales and marketing. I'd honestly love to listen to one of those recordings. Do you find that one group of people talks more than the other, or is anything surprised you there?
It can be really interesting in different clients. I've talked to hundreds of clients with these kind of workshops, and it can be very interesting dynamic. Sometimes if one group is in the room, the other one is completely silent. And it's like, whoa, you guys, let's work together. I've done these on site as well. So I just got back from LA last week and we worked with a customer in person. We had people from the operations and data team, as well as digital marketing and sales in the room. And my biggest no nonsense thing is to make sure I know everybody's name so I can call and be like, hey, you've been really quiet. What are you thinking about this? And really get that engagement going, because what I like the most is when sales and marketing actually disagree, because that we can have such a cool conversation about why we disagree, where the information is coming from. Is this a gut feeling? Is this something that we as an organization think this about ourselves, but this isn't, what the customer actually thinks about us, or this isn't actually what sales is having conversations about? Especially in content, sales can be so incredibly critical to explain what customers actually saying when they get on the first call, what they're actually concerned about. And this collaboration is really important in account-based as well, because often Sales is doing a lot of the research about the accounts that they want in this program, and sales is doing the outreach. So they're sending all the email cadences once we get the engagement signal that this customer could open an opportunity and would be really prime for this. We're working with an outbound sales team. We're crafting those email cadences, the one-to-one email cadences for sales that are relevant to those signals in order to create opportunities. So their buy-in is critical.
Yeah. I love that idea of getting them together to challenge beliefs, and just see what's an assumption, what's actually backed up by the data. I've worked sales and marketing, so it's kind of fun to sit on both sides, because with sales, you really get that one-on-one interaction with the customer. So you learn so fast what to say to them, how they're talking about your product. But also with marketing, you get to like dive in overall, like what's the data showing us on the website. So it's good to compare those and just see what's going to work best with content moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like what you said there about like gut checking what is happening at scale versus one-to-one. I have a funny story really quick about gut checking some salespeople's a right way to say this, a kind way to say this. Sometimes I have been in companies, organizations that want to completely redo all of the marketing focus because of one really good deal that was like so outlandish and will never happen again. And marketing knew it would never happen again. But so I used to work for a company where we didn't typically sell to healthcare accounts, but we sold one massive healthcare deal. And that coming down from sales, coming down from the rest of the business was like, oh, our new priority for the rest of the year is to focus and build this healthcare market. And all of marketing was like, this is not it. This is not going to work. We have market research to say this is not going to work. There are far better solutions in the healthcare space. There are HIPAA laws. We cannot be in healthcare. That was a fluke, and we knew it was a fluke. But so marketing and sales needs to really build that relationship to be able to have those open and honest conversations and collaborate together on what is a strategic approach over time and what may not work. And of course, you could try it. In that case, what I would add is, sure, let's try it. Let's set aside a specific budget and a specific timeline and a specific goal that we want to achieve. And if we don't achieve it, we pivot back. It's not like a blank check to go after the healthcare segment because it was never going to work.
That's really funny. I think that with content, any kind of content you're going to create, and specifically with content you're going to create for ABM and the strategy around all of that and how they intertwine with each other, I think getting sales and marketing in a room, physically or virtually, is a really simple starting point that could take you a long way. Because I've seen a lot of ABM efforts fall apart between the marketing and sales handoff as well.
Mhm.
And so I think, just really great tip for anybody, even at small companies. Like if you're trying to start ABM and you haven't talked to your sales team yet, that's the first place you need to start. I think that's a really great tip, Taylor.
Absolutely. And you can pilot it with your sales team as well. So there are accounts and clients that come in and are fully just only marketing's talking about that. They haven't involved sales at all. And so we start to get some things running, and then we really encourage them to pull sales in. And often what you can do is a salesperson who is kind of, maybe it's newer, so they're still trying to build their book of business. Maybe they're younger, so they're okay with, these technology and this experience, or they're just really eager to hit their goals, which everyone is. But if they don't consistently hit their goals, they're typically more open to working with you and experimenting. And so if you can highlight a couple of people who are really open to it that you could help, and then throw a lot of really great content, work on a couple of one-to-ones, have a really great success story for them, I've found that the rest of the team gets really jealous that they don't have the same kind of support for marketing, and then is more willing after we can show some of the success and results and anecdotal evidence at how well that's working.
Yeah. Taylor, when you and I used to work together in a previous life, probably one of my biggest takeaways was that you at the time, to my dismay, you can become a better marketer when you get closer to your sales team. And so, yeah, I think that's, I don't know, just simple, but
100%.
could make a
No.
really big impact. Yeah.
Oh, and what's so interesting is that is kind of the foundation of account-based marketing is that, you either have, most companies are either very sales-led and marketing is an afterthought, or they're very marketing-led and the sales are kind of just churn and burn or transactional and aren't leading as much. And where this account-based marketing approach come in is digital, when digital touch points have become so much stronger and so much of the research is happening before they start talking to a salesperson. I think those stats have been all over the place, but like 80% of the decision is made before they are even talking to a salesperson. So it created in these sales-led organizations finally seeing how important the marketing is. But then, if you're actually working together, that is the best approach and the best way to do it. So in sales, marketing also has to kind of swallow some ego and pride there a little bit and recognize that salespeople are physically talking to the customer on a regular basis. And so you've got to listen to your sales team about what is actually of your beautifully, wonderfully crafted message in your perfectly negotiated sales deck that marketing put together, what actually hits when they say it out loud and what falls flat, and really focus in and hone in on that.
I want to change topic a little bit, talk about personalization and tools. Personalization can be tricky. If it goes too far, it feels a little creepy. But if it doesn't go far enough, maybe you might as well have not even done it. Can you tell us a little bit about like maybe some tools that you would use, some approaches that you would use to not be overkill, but to do enough when we're talking about like a team that's trying to get started on this?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a ton of tools out there, some a lot more expensive, some a lot more affordable, some easier to use, some really difficult to use. But the key, I think, when you're thinking about approaching personalization is understanding why you're doing it. If you are truly taking a one-to-one approach and you're trying to scale that, making sure that you're authentically personalizing it. And what I mean is like not just tokens. A lot of people have more maybe experience with this in marketing email because that's been around a lot longer than ABM. So if you are sending in a personalized email, are you actually personalized if you're just doing tokens, or are you personalizing that message to what that person cares about and what's going to be the most relevant content to supply to them? So I'd say the same thing when you're personalizing maybe a microsite or an ebook or a different channel. Like we have chat on our platform. And so the chat conversation that pops up when we know who that person is, who's on the website, is very personalized to what they care about, those signals, the research we've done regarding that account. And so understanding that we're not just dropping in like name tokens or company name tokens or like even industry tokens, that we're actually customizing what the conversation is once they land on and start engaging with that content.
What are some of the tools that you use to do this kind of personalization? Where's this chat bot coming from? How are you customizing some of the websites? I'd just love to learn a little bit about your tech stack.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I work for Terminus, which is an account-based marketing platform. So I'm not trying to pitch you guys, but as a platform, we first and foremost bring together all of that data that I was talking about. So we get all of your account data from your CRM. We have our own firmographic data, and we have all of those signals. So the intent, everything that's going on in your website, we can surface all of that information with a really strong segmentation tool that says, hey, this account showed this type of intent in the last 30 days, but they haven't been on your website yet, so they get this message. And that integrates with our advertising platform. So display, programmatic, even CTV, like Hulu was super cool, and audio as well. So if you guys are listening to this on Spotify or Pandora or Apple Music, we can put ads there, certainly. Beyond the advertising, we also can connect that really rich data platform that is able to surface who that person works for when they're on your website. And that allows us to personalize their website through a website personalization tool that we have in the platform. So that could be, they could get pop-ups or like slide-ins, or you could do inline personalization where you're changing modals and pieces of text throughout. You're serving you're putting up a different video or a different case study because you know what industry that company's from, or you're surfacing an entirely unique microsite for that specific account that can be worked through through that piece of our platform, as well as our chat tool, which is using that same data to recognize who's on your site, no matter what page they're on, and give them a customized playbook that we're writing and very much staying in control of, but taking a really strategic approach to all of these channels, having similar messaging that is stage-based and progressive based on how they're interacting with you. And then the last one that we also have is the email banner tool. I don't know if I've talked to you guys about this one. It's a super cool way for any kind of business that's sending a lot of one-to-one emails. So your sales team, your customer success team, your account managers who are just talking to your clients all of the time, in their signature, you could have like an animated banner that is promoting your content that you want that customer to be seeing based on that stage or audience or any kind of rules that you project. And that's such a cool, we call it like a digital billboard inside of your email. And it's such a cool way for the content team to stay in control of the messages that you're getting out. Because I've been there with you specifically, Dallion, where you're begging the sales team to promote this piece of content. So that's a really fantastic way to curate that. And again, all of it would be very consistent, taking a surround sound approach, no matter where the person is online or interacting with your brand, they're getting a consistent message. So often the advertising campaigns and the creative that we're doing for that matches what we're doing in the email banners. And those talking points are in the chat tool and on the landing pages that are personalized.
I love that. A surround sound approach. Let's clip that sound bite. That was good. Taylor, give me an example. When you were sharing with Baylee and I, like your chatbot strategy, and I know a little bit about it. Can you give like a simplified example of what that might look like?
Absolutely. So I love chat strategy, not just, I think a lot of people think about chatbots as solely like help centers and support tools. And they don't have to be that. They can certainly be a tool for marketing, and they can be a really incredible tool for sales, especially if you're doing an account-based one where we are recognizing who that customer works for. And then we're sending a note to the salesperson who has been trying to book a meeting with that person and can have a live chat conversation online to help establish that. So a lot of the chatbots that we look at are still based on like the rules for, you can create individual chats in a very mature strategy that are like calling out groups of accounts. And similarly, following that messaging and content strategy about right message, right time, what you want to get in front of them. They can even be as sophisticated as based on those engagement signals and intent topics. But a much more like easier getting started type of strategy is just to make sure that you're covering your bases on your overall site, that you are giving them an opportunity to maybe book a meeting with sales if they're ready for that, giving them an opportunity to download a relevant piece of content to whatever page that they're on. Often I tell people to look at, what do you want them to do on this page? Like, why did you create this piece of content? What is the CTA maybe at the bottom that they could or could not get to? And what is the next action you'd really like them to take? And make sure that that is front and center in the chat conversation and allows them to do that. It's a really great conversion opportunity. We work with a lot of technology companies. And so they have like demo pages, for instance, is the ultimate call to action, is like book a demo with our team. And so every chatbot will put in there like, hey, do you want to book a demo? But one of the really strategic things that I did at my last company before I came to work at Terminus was on that demo page, we know that people hate forms. We know it. You could do what you want to make the form easier. You could make it one field for email address and not ask any more questions. You could make it as simple or as enticing as you want, adding a video on that landing page about what they're going to get and they fill out the form. But people often really, really avoid them. But they are so much more likely to convert in chat. And what we feel like psychologically is happening there is it feels a lot more low commitment. It doesn't feel like you're trapping them into, now you have my email and you're going to, and it also, if you do it strategically, can imply that you're giving control back to the customer. So when you fill out a form, you're then at the will of whoever's job it is to wait for that campaign to come, that alert to come through, and to either automatically send you an ebook or start calling you on the phone or booking a meeting through multiple emails that take way too long. But what we did and tested really well is on those demo or ultimate conversion pages, we'll do a proactive message that pops out of the chat that says, skip the line, skip the form. It implies like proactive and exclusivity, that you're getting something special because you're clicking over here instead of doing the same process. And by doing that, they get control because they can actually see a calendar tool inside of it. So instead of waiting for someone to call you back and book something, they're taking control of that calendar tool. They're taking control of their time and they're booking there. And so the first month that we had a really simplified demo bot on that demo landing page, we had 30% increase in meetings booked.
Wow.
That's insane. It makes a lot of sense. It's insane. I want to try that for some of my clients. You're so smart, Taylor. I'm so proud of you.
And that's where I love that you guys have me on talking about content. I am very much not a copywriter. I am a strategist. And so I think about things and how you test them and the testing strategy for, what is the human behavior that we want from this site, this conversion, this activity, this engagement, and how can we better entice that out of people? Like, what are their fears? What are their concerns? Why wouldn't they do what we want them to do? And then pulling that into other tools that you have available. So like those slide in pop-ups that offer another conversion point, or the chatbot that offers a more seamless conversion point.
Well, and you like marketing has changed so much. And I think that, a good content marketer these days is really having that depth of thought process when it comes to content creation. Like long gone are the days where we're just like writing a bunch of random blog articles that hit certain keywords. Like if you didn't do that, like you're a little bit already behind, but like really getting into almost the psychology behind why people do things, what are they coming to this page for? What can we really give them that they can walk away with and feel like they receive some kind of value? So I think, so many good things you've shared that are, transferable to content.
Well, and the irony in what you just said is I just got off a meeting with my team, and one of them was talking about a challenge that they're having with a client. And he specifically said, like, they're trying with our advertising tool. It's just like they're doing great content marketing because they're just promoting every new ebook and every new webinar and every new blog that they have, but they're not doing account-based marketing because they don't have a strategic reason for promoting all of these things and just constantly every 2 weeks switching out whatever the newest asset is that they want to promote. And so doing your advertising in that way, it's great. It's advertising. You're going to get clicks, but you're not taking a strategic approach to why you're putting that content in front of them, what you want out of it, what are your goals for the content, and how that's going to move forward each of these accounts to do what you want them to do.
Is there anything that you would want to add to this conversation that people should know about ABM, maybe specifically in content, or just any additional thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and I might get shamed for this one, but I do work for an account-based marketing platform. And there are a lot of account-based marketing platforms out there, but you should not start with the platform. You should start and test out account-based marketing with the tools that you have. And it's harder. It's much more difficult. It's much more manual. The tools are very cool and they have shortcuts for everything and they can help you scale in a more efficient way. But you should start with smaller scale, manual. You can do some things in LinkedIn without having to have an additional platform. You can do quite a lot with, just building your extra microsite in WordPress. You can be creating sections of your blog that are more specific to certain verticals or certain personas and really test how this is going to work for your brand before you get into it full-fledged. And also that, ABM is at scale can be a very expensive strategy. So it is important that you are honing in on those accounts that are going to have higher deal values for your company and you're paying attention to the efficiency metrics, because a lot of traditional marketing is based on quantity. It's based on how many leads did we get this month? How many conversions did we get? And a lot of those don't actually turn into revenue all the way down the funnel. And so what you want to be focused on is the comparison between when you've gone out and decided to invest in the content that's going to be more personalized. How well does that convert at each stage versus a control group or a group that's getting a more generic message, so that you can consistently go back to your business and say, this is why we should invest more in this, is because it's working. When you create this more personalized, more relevant, more timely content, it's creating this value for the business, and we're able to rely on that to go and scale and talk about the investment we need to do in advertisement, the investment we need to do in chat or personalization and tools.
Yeah, that I have mad respect for you for saying that. That's awesome. Just so good to learn before really taking it to scale and making a big investment with something like Terminus. So here is our last final, just kind of fun question for you, Taylor, is what is your biggest content marketing ick? If you want it to be related to ABM, go for it. Or if there is just something you see that drives you crazy.
Oh my gosh. I want to find something like super unique and clever, but can we just talk about AI for a second and how everything sounds like a computer wrote it these days? Like, please do not. I think when people start to think about ABM and they think about scaling this personalized content, that's the first place their mind seems to go these days. Or a hack, which is not a hack and it's terrible for SEO, which is just copy and pasting things into different landing pages on your website and changing like the brand name and the logo at the top of it and calling it a personalized one-to-one landing page. And you're getting dumped on for your SEO, and people can find all the other links that look exactly the same. So I guess just lazy. I think that's what it would be for me. Just really lazy versions of this personalization. You didn't put the time in to do the research and kind of personalize it in a way that's actually meaningful for that customer or prospect who's trying to do research about your company, and not sounding like a computer, because some of them are awful. Some of them are really bad.
You can see it from a mile away.
Yeah.
Taylor, tell us where people can find you, learn more about you. What are the platforms you're on?
Yeah, I am not on X or Twitter. I'm not cool enough for that. I am over on LinkedIn very actively. I work with, a really incredible team at Terminus that are strategy consultants. So I am more than happy to chat with anybody who wants to chat with me, geek out about marketing, whether that's content, account-based, whatever it is. You guys can find me on LinkedIn.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for being on the show today, Taylor. We learned so much from you already. I hope our listeners did as well. And I'm excited to go and implement just some of these things that we learned in some of the ABM that we do, and just keep chatting about this. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
I always learn a lot from you, Taylor. And I'm so proud of you. I said it earlier, but I really am so proud of you. There's, so much people can learn from just this episode. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys having me on.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Content Logistics.
If you enjoyed listening, you can follow Content Logistics wherever you get your favorite podcast.
Or access all episodes at marketersindemand.com. Bye.